Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Russ Cox, who is an illustrator, but he is also an author of children's books and graphic novels. So, Russ, could you please tell people who are not familiar with your work, what exactly is it that you write?
Well, I write picture books, and recently, well, I wouldn't say recently, probably in the last couple of years, I started drifting to graphic novels. Um, I signed with Red Fox Literary, and my agent, we were talking. She says, "I think with your style and how you see things, I think graphic novels would be a good fit for you." So we kind of shifted my focus to them, and we have two graphic novels out on submission right now with publishers.
Okay. And what can readers expect from your latest work?
Uh, I like to add a lot of humor to it, and my story's a bit askew, so they're quite different than what you probably see out there. It's just how my mind works. Um, yeah, a lot of humor, but there's a you know a background story. Like the one book I have on submission right now, it's more environmental focused. It's about a group of monsters who are trying to save where they live. So they go on this almost like uh, this great adventure trying to, the forest is being destroyed and they're trying to figure out what's happening because, they like creeping around the forest. So, there's their environmental thing right now with that one. So, yeah, a lot of my stories do have a little message hidden in there somewhere.
Hey, and what about Trucker Kid? That's an actual book that you've written and it's out already.
Well, I did not write Trucker Kid. I illustrated
Oh,
it. Yeah.
illustrated. That's right.
Yes. Well, it's kind of serendipitous how that happened because my son's a truck driver. So when Capstone approached me, like, would you like to illustrate this book? It's about a truck driver and his daughter. I'm like, well, it's just meant to be because that's what my son does. So that's how that came to be. I worked with Capstone before on several picture books. And then I realized that Carol, the author, is from the New England area as well. And we just met for the first time at the conference a couple of months ago.
Aha. Okay. You've actually illustrated a number of picture books. Um like like the Tortoise and the Hare and Emperor um and uh and the boy whose face froze and things like that.
Yeah, that was a fun one that we did a couple years ago with Lynn Plord, and she lives about 30 miles from me here in Maine. So we done that was our
Oh,
second
really?
one together.
Oh, wow. So how did you actually get into this business?
Well, I started as a graphic designer, and I did that for a number of years. And then when we lived in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and then about 15 years ago, my wife and I decided to move to Maine. And I was doing illustration before we moved more in the commercial market. I worked for like PopCap Games. I've done stuff for McDonald's, a lot of big corporations. Again, that's more on the commercial side. And then I was talking to some people who actually did picture books and like, you should try picture books. I think you do really well at it. And so I just started doing picture books, and now that's pretty much my focus: picture books and graphic novels.
Uh-huh. So getting back to the book that you're well, I don't know if you can say much about the book you're working on or that's in submission. But what kind of research actually went into it?
Are you talking about the graphic novel that I have on submission right now?
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if there's a lot of research. It was just one of those ideas. I was sketching in my sketchbook because I try to draw every day. Um, right now, I'm so busy. I've been drawing for other people, but I was just sketching, and then these characters. It's going to sound really weird, but they start talking to me,
Mm,
and they
that's not weird. That's what most authors say. I mean, it's true. The characters talk to
they
you.
really do. And then I kind of interviewed them, and they told me their story. And these creatures that I started sketching actually kind of came together, and it just popped in my head. It's like, oh, they should go on some kind of adventure. So I kind of pitched the idea to my agent, and she goes, "I like the idea. I want you to write a synopsis," which is just a general overview of what the story would be about. So I did that, and we kind of went back and forth, and from there we just developed the manuscript and did some sample pages, and we sent it out.
Okay. So what was the biggest challenge that you had in writing and putting it out?
As far as a graphic novel, well, it's kind of different than writing a picture book because, again, picture books usually 400 words or less. Graphic novel was probably about 8,000 words,
Ah,
and you actually have to write it like a movie script. So you do like page one, panel one. This is what's happening. And then you have your dialogue. Then you go to panel two. So it's really broken down like a movie script. Probably more detailed than a movie script.
okay.
You really have to have the story in your head, and you have to have the visuals in your head when you're writing that.
Right. So it's like a storyboard for uh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I kind of do that. I may if I struggle with something, the wording, I will sketch it out, and a lot of times that helps me because I'm an illustrator first, and then I'm trying to be an author second. So, which a lot of
Okay.
they tell me they do that. Like, yeah, I like to when I do a picture book that I wrote, I sketch it out before I write one word because I need to see it. And again, they start telling me their story. So there's a bunch of them that do that.
Hmm. Okay. Um, so what else can we expect from you in the near future?
Well, I'm working on a graphic novel series for Andrews McMeel. It's called Matt Moon. Well, that's the working title right now. I think they're still throwing some different titles around it, but it's about a little boy who really loves outer space, and he has a pet cat, a pet fish, and a pet dog, but they're actually aliens, and he doesn't realize it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he has a nemesis, and then there's a little journey and adventure with the nemesis and his pets. So it's
Okay.
really funny. It's written by Don Jolly.
Okay. So you're just illustrating that?
Correct. Yeah, that comes out next spring. We've been working on it for a year and a half now.
Uh-huh.
As I'm done with this
So
book two,
yeah.
I have to dive right into book two. So
Oh, wow. So when you're actually writing your graphic novels, are you illustrating, it sounds like you're illustrating books for other people.
correct. Yes. And then I'm actually a high school visual arts teacher during the day as well. So I work on weekends and nights and breaks and all that stuff.
Wow.
Sometimes I take my work to school and so the kids can see that I'm working on and so they can ask a bunch of questions. So
Keeping very busy.
very busy.
Do you happen to have anything you could show us?
Let's see here. I might be able to I tell you what, let me find this real quick. If you want to ask me another question, well, I don't know if
Okay.
I can show you the graphic all I'm working on, but I can show you my pitch pack that I did for my story ideas. So let's see, where did I put that?
Okay. I can ask you the question of what's your favorite part of being an artist and writer and the whole writing and publishing process?
The favorite part, I love designing the characters. I to me, that's my favorite part because then watching them come to life and modifying and changing them and uh, them starting to tell me their story visually. As far as the writing part, it still scares me because I'm fairly new, even though I have a book published and I have a bunch of books out on submission. It still scares me. And then again, I talk to others like, oh yeah, that's not going to go away. You're never going to feel comfortable. But I think that's probably good though, because then it's almost like the carrot's always out of reach, and you're just keep working and working and working at it.
Mhm.
But I feel like each story I write, I get a little better. I start understanding things more, and that's what a lot of them say. It's all seat time.
Mhm. And Faraway Friends is the book that you wrote that's been published, right?
Correct, and that was
Yeah.
just a drawing I did, and a friend of mine says, "Oh, you should write a story for that." I'm like, "I know, I just draw the pictures." She goes, "Well, if you don't write a story for it, I'm going to." So I wrote the story, and that went through 20. 4 revisions.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. It went through quite a bit. Let's see if I can find this. Let me open this. So yeah, I just yeah, went through lots of revisions. I wrote it like 12 times and I had an agent at the time and then she made me revise it and then publisher made me revise it. So yeah, you don't get it right the first time.
Oh, never.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know what's okay. Why is it doing that? All right, we can if I can share my screen, maybe it'll let me do this. All right.
Okay. Is it allowing you to share your screen? It might not yet.
No.
Okay, so let me do this.
Okay. While you do that, let me try open this a different way.
Okay. And I'll allow you, make you the co-host. Okay, now try it.
Oh, okay. I'm a co-host now. All right. Let me see. This might be better if I can open it in since it's a PDF file. Pitch pack. There's the PDF. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to put this on my other screen. It's this window. It's a whole process. Okay. Let's do
Okay,
this. All right.
there you go.
All right. You can see that?
Yep.
Okay. So this title, it it came to me years ago and I had nothing for it. And then again, I was just sketching and I was sketching these monsters and they started telling me their story. I'm like, oh, this title that I had would probably be a good fit because the turns out the monsters like to eat peanut brittle. So this is
Uh,
what it's called a pitch pack. This is what you send to publishing houses to try to sell your story. So my agent handles all of this. So this is kind of this is the log line, which is kind of like your elevator pitch. And this is a synopsis of the story. You don't have a lot of dialogue when you write the synopsis. You're just trying to get a general idea. You can see that on you can see my mouse, but on this side, there's a little bit of dialogue, and then there's more of the synopsis, and here are the
uh,
characters. Then I write a little blurb about what each character is.
oh, those are great.
Thank you. I actually had 9 main characters for the monsters, and we're like, yeah, we gotta whittle that down a bit. So some if this is sold and it becomes a series, some of the other monsters will actually be villains in the other books. So and then this is the dummy. So these are just sketches on what a few of the pages will look like.
Uh-huh.
And then there'll be some color samples. Again, these are just real quick.
And you can tell the differences between the graphic novel
Yeah,
and a picture book.
right, right. And then here's some color samples.
Wonderful.
Thank you. And then there's actual manuscript. And you can see how it's set up like a movie script.
Hmm. It's very interesting.
Thank you. And just a little bit about me. That's a pitch pack.
Hmm. Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, So, what do you consider the most challenging part of the whole process of the whole illustration and writing process, and how do you overcome it?
Uh, right now, for me, it's the writing. It's again, it's just out of my comfort zone. I didn't go to school to be a writer. I went to school to be an artist. So I'm always messing up and learning and trying new things and reading, going to conferences. It's the writing part that's still it's the tricky part. But again, the people I talk
Mhm.
to, they say the same thing. It's the writing.
It's the writing.
It's the writing. As far as illustration, uh, it really depends on the book. Um, I mean, the graphic novels is it's a lot of work. It's a lot of sketching, and that can be daunting. Um, I mean, the one I'm working on now, the Matt Moon book, is 160 pages.
Wow,
Yeah, and some of
that's
the graphic
a
novels
lot.
are like 300 pages. So it's a lot of sketching. Uh, but I find I really enjoy it though. But to get back to the original question, yeah, it's the writing.
So, do you in the graphic novels you do the actual sketching, the you do the inking, you do the coloring, everything.
Yes, I even the word balloons or the speech bubbles, put the type in. I know some of the publishing houses, they have people who specialize in just putting the words in. Some people color the book, some people ink the book. Uh,
Hmm.
I
Is
kind of
it
like, I kind of like doing all of it. I mean, if somebody wanted to put the speech bubbles in, that's fine, but I enjoy the whole process.
like comic books? I know some people they do each. Uh, there's a different person doing the inking and the coloring and things like that.
Yeah, because
So,
it's a specialty each thing. Yeah.
right. Interesting. Okay. So, what's been your favorite adventure during your publishing career?
I have to say, getting my own book published, it's probably my favorite, but I always like the next book. I'm always excited about the next one. Once I'm done with the book, I'm kind of done with it for a little bit because I've spent so much time on it and I need a break from it. So when the next book comes in, I get really excited about that. And also still get excited about writing my own stories and seeing if somebody's going to like them or not. And um, hopefully, they'll make it out on the shelf someday. So
Hmm. So, as an illustrator, are you just sent books to illustrate, or does the publisher just send you the books to illustrate?
usually the publisher will contact my agent, Jenny
Okay.
Kendrick at Redbox, and then she'll get a hold of me and we'll talk about it, whether it's a good fit. A lot of times they'll send me the manuscript to read, see if I like it. Uh, if I don't, if I don't make a connection with the story, I'm probably not going to do it because I think it's important. Even for
Mm.
the author, they spent all this time working on it that I need to have a connection to. And just because I don't have a connection doesn't mean that somebody else won't. I mean, each story is different, and there's things I like illustrating, things that I may not have the skill set for. I've been sent like historical stuff, and I'm not a historical illustrator.
Mm.
My stuff is very cartoony. I mean, I could try it, but I think then I'd be doing a disservice to the author because they spent so much time getting that book published that they need somebody who can do a really good job.
Right. And the illustration is really a total integral part of this of the whole thing. I mean, just as far as a picture book goes, I'm not talking about graphic novels because that's obviously the main part of it, really. Um, but um, there's such a I can't think of the word between the author and the illustrator. There's even though you don't meet usually, do
No,
you?
no, not too
Yeah.
long. Yeah,
It, it,
they don't have any communications between the author and illustrator because they like the illustrator bring their own voice to it. Um, but yeah,
exactly. That's what I meant to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have your own voice. You bring your own uh thoughts to it.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it's just the author is totally amazed at what the illustrator can do to it.
Right. Because the author may think, well, this is going to be a squirrel, and I may think it's a robot. So you know, which sometimes is it's a little scary because you're like, I really hope the author likes what I did. And that's
Right.
when they finally get the book, you're just waiting for that email or a phone call.
Yeah, and from what I've heard, most of the time the authors love what the illustrators have done, and they think, wow, they just can't believe what the illustrator has pictured, and they said, I didn't even think of this.
Yeah, yes, that does happen. And the with the picture book, the words and the illustrations are equally important, so they have to do a dance together.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, and I couldn't figure the words. Speaking of words, yeah. So, what is the greatest lesson that you've learned thus far in your career?
Oh boy, that's a really good one. Greatest lesson. Um, hmm, I have to think on that for a minute. Greatest lesson. I would have to say, if you want to do this, even as an illustrator, you should be reading constantly. I think reading is probably the most important thing. I mean, we can spend hours drawing and honing our craft, but I think just reading books, even books that may be outside your interest, I think that just helps you grow as an artist. And it definitely, I know it helps you grow as a writer. Um, yeah, I would say
Hmm.
reading, because that's what I tell my students. So you can spend hours sketching, but read, and listen to music, get involved in other arts, watch movies, which I know a lot of people watch movies and stuff. But yeah, I think reading is the big thing.
Hmm. Okay. So, is that the piece of advice you would give to other artists, or do you have anything else?
I would say, draw every day. There's no secret to this. It's just seat time. It's just working at your craft, drawing, try new mediums. Don't get stuck in a one area. Try different things. You can always go back to your comfort zone, but if you don't get out of your comfort zone, you're not going to grow as an artist. And
Hmm.
my students, they have to do sketchbooks. They're drawing every day, but that's how you get better. It's just there's really no secret. You can watch all the videos and tutorials and do all this stuff, but it's just you with a pencil and paper.
Hmm. Very true. Okay. Are there any groups, clubs, or organizations that you'd recommend to other writers that have helped you in your career?
Oh, definitely SCBWI, Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and then there's a branch, the New England branch is the NESCBWI. Definitely join that. It'll help you. You'll meet a lot of people because it's about connections, and you're going to find it's a great community. People are willing to help you. I mean, you go to conferences, you can talk to Jane Yolen, super lovely. Just and so is her daughter Heidi. They're just great people. They'll talk to you. Um, yeah, I go to conferences. It's difficult. I know, especially when you're new. You just want to stand against the wall. Not. I just want to see. I don't want to be involved. But get involved. Volunteer. I volunteered. I met a lot of people, and that really helped my career. But I think, yeah, joining those organizations and getting critique groups. Don't be afraid to put your work out there. If you're an artist, post things on Instagram. Let people see it. It's not going to be one of those you build it and they will come. You have to get it out there, and which is very very difficult to do.
Right. True. Okay, so what is one thing that most people don't realize about you?
I'm really tall. When I go to the conference, like you need to tell us that you're 6'5". So I'm really tall. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Now this is a tough one. What question do you wish interviewers would ask you, and what would your answer be?
Uh, what is my second love as far as um, what would be something I'd like to do if I wasn't doing illustration?
And what would your answer be?
I have two answers. I would love to be a musician.
Hmm.
I played bass in bands and played at clubs and did all that stuff. Uh, Recorded, was on the radio. That was a lot of fun. So music is a very close second love of mine. Uh, and I think it'd be great to be an FBI profiler. I watched Mindhunter like 20 times. I don't know. There's just something about it I find interesting. I don't know if I'm wired to do it, but I find it interesting enough that I'd like to try it. But I think I'm too old for it now. So
I don't know. You're never too old to learn a new craft.
that is true. That's right. You're never too old. But yeah, I don't.
I've heard of people who are like in their 90s, just getting degrees in
Well,
something.
that is true. Yeah, you're never too old. I might
Never too old.
to be a profiler and a touring
But we
musician.
still, but we still like love you to do your artwork too,
Yeah, that's what I'm made to do. So I'm not going to fight it. So
right? Yeah, don't quit your day job, right?
great.
Okay. What is or are your passions when you're not writing or doing artwork? And how do you make time for your for the hobbies and things that you love?
Oh, I again, I love music. So when I'm working, I'm always listening to music. I try to go down and pick up the bass or play the banjo, even strum the guitar a little bit. But it's right now, it's really, really hard to find time. Uh, Love watching movies. I love to cook.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's a necessity. So, you have to make time to do that. So my work works night shifts, so I'm usually cooking before she leaves for work. So, um, yeah, right now it's really hard to find time to do any of my personal stuff that I like to do. So, but that's a good
Hmm.
problem to have. So I'm not complaining.
Okay. So what does your writing space look like?
Well,
And what do you need to have around you when you're writing or editing
well,
or
this
or
is my
working?
this is my drawing table. It's actually a light table, so it's
Oh, yes.
there's the switch, so you can see that it lights up. I'm just in a really tiny room, and I really like that. I used to have a larger room where I could roll around, but I like having everything nearby. So it's just a typical small room with my art supplies, my books in the background. I have a table to my right here. So I usually write over here and then I work, where we're looking at now. So yeah, just a small space. There's
Hmm.
usually if I'm really focusing on writing, I'll go downstairs in the basement so I can tune out the cars and everything, and I'll just sit down there or I'll sit out on the deck. And,
That's for writing, but for your artwork.
yeah, I stay right in here. It's pretty much unless I'm sketching. Again, I may go down in the basement or sit in the living room or something. But yeah, I usually just stay in here when I'm doing artwork.
Okay. And do you have to have some kind of food or drink with you usually?
I usually have water. Uh, and I don't keep a lot of food here because I would sit here and just eat it and forget.
Yep.
I need to go for a walk.
Okay. And you said you love music. So do you listen to music all the time when you're writing or doing artwork?
When I'm doing artwork, yeah, it varies. I could be listening to the Who, to the Ramones, Pink Floyd, some experimental music, classical music. I've really gotten into blues lately and jazz. So it really
Mhm.
depends my mood and what I'm doing. When I'm writing, I pretty much like it to be quiet because that way
Mhm.
I don't get distracted. If I'm revising, I may have jazz. I seem to do well with jazzes on. That I can still maintain focus, but have some background noise. If it's too quiet, it kind of bothers me. I
Yep.
guess, I guess that's from all the years having kids running around the house and stuff. But yeah, if it's too quiet, it gets eerie.
And how important has the New England setting been to your work?
It's been great, especially living in a small town like Pittsfield. When we lived in Lancaster City, I mean, we were like, 8 feet from the city streets and all that, and there was noise. But here in Pittsfield, it's really quiet. Uh, Lots of trees around, not a lot of buildings. I mean, our neighbors are great, but it's pretty quiet. And just during the winter, you don't really have a lot of options, and it helps me really focus on my work. I think I tend to write more during the winter.
Hmm. Yeah.
Just
Okay. And
snowfall.
so, and writers very often have furry or feathered or otherwise non-human companions to help them through their work. And do you have any, and what are they? And do they help or hinder you?
Well, we have 3 cats. Uh,
Haha.
yeah. Um, Sometimes they help. Most of the time they hinder because they like laying on the keyboard or, you're writing with a pen. That because I usually write with a pen and paper first. I don't like typing right away because I get too focused on punctuation and spelling, and then I kind of lose my groove. So if I just write with pen and paper, I just kind of get the idea out. But when you're writing, the tip of the pen is sticking up, and the cat would like to rub their face on it, so your marks across the paper. So yeah, I mean, I love them to death, but yeah, they're a hindrance quite a bit when I'm trying to work. But that's what they're supposed to do, right?
Absolutely.
How
That's
about you?
what cats do that.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any cats or dogs? Or
I have two cats, and they a lot of times hinder me.
yes,
Use me as a scratching post.
yeah.
Jump on my keyboard.
And as soon as you lean back, there's a cat on your chest or on you, like
Yep.
lean back to look at something. And
Yep. They just don't want us to work. That's all.
no, no, it's all about them.
Yes, absolutely. So I just have two more questions for you. Where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? And I always have to put a plug in for Annie's. You can get Russ's work at Annie's if you call us at 508-796-5613, or you can order books at Annie's orders at anniesbooksworcester.com. And where else can people find your work?
Well, here in Maine, I'm at the bookseller in Waterville and the Briar Patch in Bangor, and like Sherman's bookstores. They carry my books. And of course, there's the big place that we don't name. I encourage people, if my books are in their local bookstore, they ask them to order it for them. So support your local bookstore. They're very, very important.
Okay, thanks. And my last question is, how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Oh, I I'm on Twitter and Facebook, but I'm not on there much anymore because, well, we all know what those two platforms are like now.
Yep.
If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram. There's where I post a lot of my artwork and what's happening, and it will filter through to Facebook and Twitter. But again, uh, follow me on Instagram, and my website is Smiling Otis, SMILINGOTIS.com. And that was named after a cat. So my studio is named after a cat we had. So
Oh, I was wondering about that actually.
a lot of people are like, what's with the name? That's when I got.
It makes much more sense now. Okay. Oh, well, thank you so much, Russ and Russ Cox. And thank you for joining me today. And hopefully we will actually be seeing you at Annie's at our bookstore. We're having a book signing on August 5th, I believe,
That's correct.
at 2 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody is in the area, come and join us.
Yes, definitely. Stop by and say hi.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, and we will be seeing you then.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.